Welcome back to another StarWarsUnlimited deck build, and today I am bringing you a deck that's easily my most favourite deck to play in the game right now, and that is my Chirrut deck. But this isn't just any Chirrut deck. This Chirrut deck is a hybrid between aggression, using the Force and Rebel tags, as well as making Chirrut himself an undefeatable boss for the deck. Yes, you heard that right, an undefeatable boss. You may be thinking, how's that possible? Well, we'll get to that in the deck build. And well, the elephant in the room, it's my first showcase. I finally pulled a showcase, and well, according to the showcase laws, we have to make a deck on a showcase. So before we jump into the leader, the base, and well, the deck itself, if you enjoy StarWarsUnlimited content, then make sure to like and subscribe, because there's going to be loads of decks coming out, especially with set 4 just around the corner, and I don't want you guys to miss out on all these brand new deck builds. With that being said, let's crack on to the leader. First things first, the leader. Yes, the intro didn't lie. We like to make an undefeatable boss with this deck. However, we need him to deploy. But first, he has got an ability. His ability reads, action, you can exhaust him, give a unit for the phase, +2 health. Gonna be honest, I've probably used that maybe 2-3 times ever using this deck. It almost never comes up, and to be honest, it's just kind of wasted most of the time. The true power in Chirrut comes on his flip. When Chirrut flips, he comes out on 5, so relatively early. He's got a 3-5 stat line, which isn't great. However, and there's a big however, his ability is, during the action phase, this unit isn't defeated by having no remaining HP. So for those who don't know what that means, he won't go down until the turn is over. Let me tell you right now, that ability is absolutely insane. Chirrut sticks around for so long and puts in so much work just because they can't defeat him. Some of you are thinking, okay, but how does that actually work? Well, this is the field right now, right? I've got my Chirrut deployed. They've got a Mace Windu deployed. They attack with their Mace Windu into my Chirrut, doing 5 damage. Normally, that 5 damage would be enough to defeat Chirrut. However, because of his ability, he won't go down. The only time Chirrut will go down is if I take the initiative, they pass, and then we draw our cards and start to ready up our units. That is when Chirrut would be defeated. However, do you really think we're just going to let that damage sink on our Chirrut? Not a chance. Our deck is filled to the brim with cards that are going to boost his stat line, heal him up, and just make him stick around for basically forever. Have you keen eyes out there? Yes, you did just see this card. Let me tell you, this combo is so good. Some decks literally can't out it. Also, here's a really nice bit of tech with Chirrut. So say, right, you sentinelled him up, so he's got 6 health. Maybe they've got like a Crate Dragon on the field that does 10 damage and it's got Overwhelm. For those who don't know what Overwhelm does, the excess damage when defeated go to base. So in this scenario, Crate Dragon's got 10 attack, Chirrut's got 6 health. So you defeat it and that 4 HP will go to base. However, Chirrut's not being defeated, so Overwhelm doesn't work against Chirrut. If they hit him for that 10 damage, it just means he gets the 10 damage. Because he's not being defeated, there's no Overwhelm to happen. It's insanely good. So as you can tell from that small explanation, Chirrut is just insane. Like, I'm not joking. Some decks literally can't out your Chirrut once you start boosting him and giving him more health, more damage, and constantly healing him. Like, they just lose. With that being said though, there is one extremely hard counter for this deck, and it does hit us hard, but I've got some nice hints and tips for you later on how to avoid that. To pair up with our lovely blue Chirrut, we go for a red base. Mainly because there's a lot of Rebel red cards we want to use, and a lot of Force red cards we want to use, and also Tarkin Town's just kind of nuts for this deck. What to do? Epic action, deal 3 damage to a damaged non-leader unit. Tarkin Town's just really valuable for this deck for the reason of we run 3 Force throws in here, and also things like Dare and Raid. So Tarkin Town can turn a 1-cost Dare and Raid that does 2 damage into essentially doing 5 damage. So the leader and the base done, let's get on to these ground units. Kicking things off the ground units is a 1-cost, and that is 2 1B surgical droids. Don't click off the video, trust me, this is insane. So this deck likes to equip Chirrut with Protector that gives him Sentinel. Yes, basically an undefeatable Sentinel. So surgical droid set up behind a sentinelled Chirrut Unway is so good. Why? Why, you may be thinking? So Surgical Droid reads, on attack, you may heal 2 damage from another unit. You think about, how's that so good? So we've got a Sentinel Chirrut right now. They've just claimed the initiative. Our Chirrut's exhausted with 6 damage on him, meaning once I pass, he's going to be defeated. Attack with Surgical Droid, activate his on-attack ability, heal a lovely 2 damage. Oh, look, our Sentinel Chirrut is now going to survive. Gotta be honest though, 9 times out of 10 you're going to end up just resourcing Surgical Droid, but in the games you have to Sentinel your Chirrut, this card has so much value. Play it and trust me, but like I said, 99% of the time you probably will end up resourcing it. Moving on to our 2-cost ground units, and that's 3 Sabine Wrens. Sabine is just a staple in any red hero deck because she's so good, and remember we like to use that rebel term a lot. So what does Sabine actually do? While there are at least 3 aspects among other friendly units, this can't be attacked. Nice, don't come up all the time, but on attack you may deal 1 damage to a defender or to a base, essentially making her a 3/3. However, what I love using her for is once you declare attack onto a 1 HP unit, her on attack will happen first, do that 1 attack to the unit, defeats it, and no damage goes back to Sabine. Moving on to our next 2-cost ground units is 2 Jyn Erso. Jyn Erso, a lovely turn 1 player as well for this deck. Well, and also she fits the theme. Chirrut, Jyn, Rogue One, insane. But she's also got 3/2, so solid stat line. She's Rebel, so gets synergy with most of the deck. And one enemy unit has been defeated this phase. This unit gets +1 and Saboteur. Do not forget that. The extra 4 attack and Saboteur in this deck can put so much pressure onto the base, especially once she's set up behind a sentinelled Chirrut. Moving on to our 3-cross ground units, we've got 2 Fleet Lieutenants. So strong, you've probably seen it in lots of Sabine decks. But what's it do? When played, you may attack the unit. If it's a rebel unit, it gets +2 for this attack. So it makes our Sabine and Jyn Erso hit for 5 in turn 2, while also giving us a 3/3 body. Not just that, Chirrut is also rebel, so when you play him out, you can also attack with Chirrut, giving it that attack boost. Moving on to our next 3-cost ground unit, we got 3 Yodas. As I mentioned earlier, we run a lot of cards that go off the Rebel synergy, but we also run a lot of cards that go off the Force synergy. So getting this out turn 2 for that synergy to activate is so strong. Not just that, he's very good for the deck. So he's 2/4 with Restore 2. That healing is crucial, by the way, because you've only got 25 HP. Also, when defeated, choose any number of players. You're always going to just choose yourself. They each draw a card. So he's essentially just Force synergy, draw a card, and heal. All for free resources. Moving on to our next 3-cost ground unit, that is 3 Village Protectors. This card's just so nice to slow down certain decks. Yes, we're quite aggressive, but we're not as aggressive as the Sabine matchup. This card just slows that deck straight up, and it's beautiful. Well, unless they play turn 1 Sabine, then don't play this card. Why? What does this card do? So Sentinel, 2/2, but it comes out shielded. So because of that, 9 times out of 10, it's going to take at least 2 attacks to take it down, unless they play out that Sabine. So it's just a nice slow up. We're going to wait till we get our Chirrut ready. We're now going to jump to our 4-cost ground units, and that's 2 General Dodanas. So why are we running General Dodana? Well, he's a 4/4, so good stat line, but also other friendly rebel units get +1/+1. So he essentially gives 90% of this deck +1/+1, including Chirrut, so he instantly becomes a 4/6. And the reason making Chirrut a 4/6 is so important, because in your 4 resource turn, if you play out Dodana, and then on your 5 resource turn, you deploy Chirrut, it gives him that 6 HP, meaning he's out of the range of Takedown. For those who don't know what Takedown does, it's a 4 resource card that says, defeat a unit with 5 or less remaining HP. So that means Chirrut could be defeated the turn it comes out. However, Dodana stops that from happening, which is hyper valuable. Moving on to our next 4-cost unit is 3 Kanan Jarrus. I mean, this guy's just the epitome of what this deck is. He is Force and Rebel. Perfect! Not just that, he's 4/5 stat line and has an insane effect. I'm absolutely loving Kanan. The more I use him, the more I realise how insanely good he is. So, what does he do? On attack, you may discard 1 card from a defender player's deck for each friendly Spectre unit, so he counts as 1, and often you have Sabine, so you get 2 discards, which is nice. Heal 1 damage from your base for each different aspect among the discarded cards. I have hit some super nice discards off this card. Not just that, because Kanan's Force and Jedi, I mean, we can give him things like Jedi Lightsaber, making him a 7/8, or the Force is with me, giving him 2 experience tokens and that shield. Moving on to our 5-cost ground units, we've only got 1, and that is Rey. So Rey's a 4/7. That 7 HP makes her stick around for a while. Not the greatest stat line. However, she reads, when playing this unit, ignore her hero aspect penalty if you control Kylo Ren. Not going to happen in this deck. She also reads, on attack, you may heal 2 damage from a unit. If it's a non-hero aspect unit, give a shield token to it. That's nice, but I mean, you're always going to be healing a hero aspect card, and you know what I'm going to say. Get Rey set up behind your Chirrut. Every time she attacks, heal Chirrut. With her and Surgical Droid on the field, you're healing 4 damage in 1 turn. Rey is quite nice, but because you don't always get Chirrut sentinelled, like, she's sometimes irrelevant, and because she doesn't hit that hard, like, it's alright. Moving on to our 6 cost ground units, we've got 2 Obi-Wan Kenobis. Obi-Wan is insanely strong. He's 4/6 with Sentinel, but he reads, when defeated, give 2 experience tokens to another friendly unit. If it's a Force unit, you can draw a card too. Here's a tip for what I found most effective for this deck. If you had an Obi-Wan and Protector in your hand on like your 4, maybe 5 resource turn, I'd more often than not resource the Protector because you've got a Sentinel. Why do you have to Sentinel him when you've got a Sentinel right here? Because they just ignore your Obi-Wan and hit your Chirrut. You don't want them to ignore your Obi-Wan because you want to claim those 2 experience tokens. So you play him out, they defeat your Obi-Wan, give Chirrut +2 health and 2 attack, and get to draw a card. You also find giving him those 2 experience tokens really valuable once Obi-Wan's then defeated, because then you can Protector that boosted up Chirrut. Moving on to our 7 cost unit, we've got 1, and that is Mace Windu. He's only in here because I got no Luke Skywalkers. I'm just going to be honest. So what does Mace do? So he's 5/7, but he's got ambush. But more importantly, when his unit attacks and defeats a unit, you can ready him. So essentially, if you're playing against a opposition's ground units that haven't got that much HP, he can single-handedly just take everything out. Mace is nice, but that's the most I can kind of say about him. He's nice. He's no Luke Skywalker. If you got Luke, chuck him in. Moving on to our 8 cost ground units is 1 Chewbacca. So I'm going to be honest, if I had 2 Lukes, I'd drop a Mace Windu and a Chewbacca for those 2 Lukes. However, Chewbacca's still very good. So he's 4/10 with grit, meaning you can get him up to 13 attack. Yes, 13. But more importantly, when played, you may defeat a unit with 5 less remaining HP. He's just an instant bit of removal for you. But did you see it? He's got Smuggle for 9 with red. We run red. So yes, if you get this card early on, you can smuggle it out for just 1 more. That has come up a few times for me, and it has come in really clutch, but I'd still much rather a Luke. And rounding up our ground units is an absolute beautiful finisher. You can probably guess what's coming. That is 1 Krayt Dragon. Normally, the game doesn't go on long enough for you to play out your Krayt Dragon, but when you play the control matchups, you tend to get to this point where you need it, and against control, he is beautiful. So why is this card such a good finisher? What does it do? Well, it's 10/10 for 9, which is already super good. It's got Overwhelm, and when an opponent plays a card, you may deal damage equal to that card's cost to the base or ground unit they control. So anything they play, this can just nuke off the field or just destroy their base. It's so good. You don't need me to go on about Krayt Dragon. It's just insanely strong. With that being said, that's the ground units done. Let's get on to the space units. Starting things off with the space units as 2 costs, and that's 2 restored Arc 170s. You can probably tell every single blue hero aspect deck I've played has this card in there. Why? Well, it's 2 free, so nice stat line for turn 1, but it's got restore 1. Not just that, because it's got 2 attack free health, it can one-shot lurking TIE Phantoms when attacking it, which is beautiful. But also, it has got that rebel tag, so we can boost it Fleet Lieutenant, and Dodana makes it a free 4. Moving on to our next 2 cost space unit is, well, a card that's probably my favourite turn 1 play, that is free Green Squadron A-Wings. This card puts insane work in for the deck. So it's 1 free, but it's got Rey 2, meaning it attacks for free damage. But it's also got Rebel, meaning it has insane synergy with this deck. What I like to do, turn 1, you play out your A-Wing. Turn 2, you play out your Lieutenant, that then boost this to 5 attack in turn 2. Yeah, it's just insanely good, and if they don't deal with it, the amount of pressure and damage it puts in is absurd. Moving on to a free cost space unit, and our last space unit is Free Wing Leaders. This card is insanely important for the deck. Why? It's 2/1, which isn't great, but when played, give 2 experience tokens to another friendly rebel unit. This card can single-handedly win games. How, you may be thinking? Because maybe our Chirrut's got 5 damage on him and they've passed their turn, so you can just play Wing Leader, give 2 experience tokens, boom, he's got 2 extra HP. Or maybe, turn 1, you've played out your A-Wing, give 2 experience tokens to it, meaning it's hitting for 5 with 5 HP. Same to Restored Arc, it makes it a 4-5. Your Jyn Erso becomes a 5-4. Your Sabine Wren becomes a 4-5 that hits for 5. And there are just a few other things that you can do with Wing Leader. Yeah, I absolutely love this card. In most Rebel decks, I love it, but in this one, like, it's just so much better. So that's it for our space units. Let's crack on to the events and upgrades. Kicking things off for the events and upgrades, well, you saw it earlier, that is 2 Daring Raids. So what does this card do? Deal 2 damage to a unit or base. It can be nice, a little prod damage at their base, or sometimes finishing off games, but most importantly, like I said earlier, you play it out to 2 damage to a unit, then you can activate Tarkin Town, doing another 3 damage to it. Essentially, with Tarkin Town, this becomes a 5 damage to a non-leader unit for 1 cost, which is just so good. Moving on to our next 1 cost, that is 2 Covert Strength. This card is just made for this deck. It's just perfect for it. Why? What does it do? So you can heal 2 damage from a unit and give an experience token to it. Essentially, it means we can give Chirrut another 3 extra HP out of nowhere for only 1 cost. But why I love this card so much and why it's perfect for this deck is right here. You can smuggle it for 3 cost. Yes, you can smuggle it. So maybe you get it really early and well, you don't really need it later, and then suddenly, oh, check my resources, oh, I can smuggle it, boom, there's the emergency healing I needed for Chirrut. I found with this deck, I actually play Covert Strength more from the smuggle than playing it out from my hand. Moving on to our next 1 cost is one of the best cards in the deck, and that is 3 Force Throws. I just can't get enough of this card at the moment, it's just in all my decks. So what does this card do? Choose a player, normally them. That player discards a card from the hand, then if you control a force unit, which you normally do, you may deal 2 damage to a unit equal to the cost of that discarded card. For 1 cost, they discard a card and it's a free bit of removal. It's just so good. Not just that, because you're doing damage to a unit, it means Tarkin Town can also combo with this. Not just that, you can also pick yourself. So maybe they've got a high HP target out. You can discard like your Crate Dragon, the Chewbacca, and do 9 to 10 damage for 1 cost. Moving on to our next 1 cost, well, it's essentially a free cost because of the aspect penalty. That's 3 Protectors. What does this card do? Attached unit gains Sentinel and +1 attack, +1 health. But just, I mean, yeah, it's Sentinel onto Chirrut. But not just that, it's also got Chirrut on the picture, so it's designed for him. But this card is the reason just some decks just can't win. Like, if you get a Chirrut sentinelled up, like, they literally can't defeat it. The only way they can take him down is if they charge all their ground units into him. But by then, Chirruts just wipe their entire field. And, well, to be honest, you can then normally heal up your Chirrut, meaning they've just lost all their units for nothing. There is a 4 cost card that does the same thing, and it gives it +2/+2, but I have tested it. I just found paying 3 and having those extra 2 resources a lot more valuable than, well, paying the 4. To put that in perspective, you can deploy Chirrut on your 5 resource turn, give him the Protector, meaning you have 2 resources left. So if they do damage to him, or maybe enough to actually defeat him, you can still play things like It Binds All Things to heal damage and do damage back. But if you played Unshakable Will, that does 4, you've only got 1 left, so you can only do like a Force Throw, for example. Moving on to our 2 costs where you've just seen it. That's It Binds All Things. What does this card do? Heal up to 3 damage for a unit. If you control a force unit, you may deal that much damage to another unit. So it's healing and damaging within this deck. We only run 1 because I found you don't actually end up Sentinel in Chirrut too often. So if you get multiple of these in your hand, it kind of clogs up your hand. But like I said, on your 5 resource turn, you can Sentinel and then play this on top of it, which is disgustingly good. Moving on to our 3 costs, we run 2 Jedi Lightsabers. Oh my word, giving Chirrut this and Sentinel is literally GG to the opposition. Why? What does it do? Attached to a non-vehicle unit. If attached unit is a force unit, it gains on attack, giving the defender -2/-2. While giving it the +3/+3, disgusting! Not just that, if your Chirrut does go down and you get this card in hand, give it to your Rey. Give it to your Mace Windu, give it to Kanan, give it to Obi-Wan, even Yoda if you have to. The options are endless. I've never seen a card counter Snoke as hard as Jedi Lightsaber on Chirrut, or basically any force unit. But in this scenario, it was Chirrut. So they played out Snoke, meaning Chirrut went down to a 1-3. I equipped him with Jedi Lightsaber. They took the initiative. And then Chirrut attacked, because he's now got 4 attack. But don't forget, Snoke would have lost the -2/-2. Meaning that Chirrut one-shot the Snoke and still stayed up. Insanely good. And rounding up the main deck is a card that I just love with all my heart, and that is Free the Force is with me. This card is just so good. What does it do? Choose a friendly unit and give 2 experience tokens to it. If you control a Force unit, also give a shield token to that chosen unit. You then can attack with that chosen unit. It's just busted, to be honest, this card. It's absolutely busted. What I love doing is deploying Chirrut, activate the forces with me, giving them 2 experience tokens and the shield, hitting for base, and still having 1 resource left to activate the force throw. By the way, next turn you can then activate the protector, meaning you've then got a sentinelled, shielded Chirrut. Woohoo! That's our main deck done. Let's crack on to the side deck. Kicking things off in the side deck, we've got 3 Concord Dawn Interceptors. Because Chirrut's on the ground, being a pesky sentinel, they can actually skip past him by just going to space. So against decks that do that, and against your space heavy decks, this card is an absolute must. Why? So it's a 1/4 with Sentinel, but more importantly, this unit gets +2 attack while defending. Concord Dawn Interceptors is just insanely strong, especially when you play against a Jango Fett deck. This card on its own can just shut that deck down. Moving on to our next space unit in the side deck, that is 1 Redemption. So, what does this card do? So it's 6/9 with Sentinel. When played, heal up to 8 total damage from any number of units or bases, deal that much damage to this unit. So it's just a nice emergency heal. You want to bring this card in when you're playing against those games that do go on a bit longer, or maybe there's more controlling matchups, because suddenly surprising 8 healing on the base or onto your Chirrut is just so valuable. But for most of your matchups, it just wouldn't get used. That's why it's in the side deck. Moving on to our events and upgrades in the side deck, we've got a 1 cost, and that has 2 Mystic Reflections. What does this card do? Giving any unit -2 attack for this phase. If you control a Force unit, give an enemy unit -2/-2 for this phase instead, which is insanely good. However, I just found stuff in the main deck a bit more valuable. But if you play against space heavy decks, or maybe something like they're just playing out Village Protectors, this card's insanely strong. But I'll tell you when I mainly side this in, is when I'm playing against decks that have Lurking TIE Phantom, because this can just one-shot them for 1 resource, which is so good. Our next one is a 2 cost, that is a second, it binds all things. If the game's going on a bit longer and you're against the matchups that are taking a while, get more healing in to sentinel up our Chirrut. Our next is a 3 cost, that is 2 Perilous Positions. Maybe you're playing against a deck that's just a bit too aggressive and you need to slow something down, or maybe you want something to hit their leader with the turn that comes out. Put this in here. What does it do? So, when played, exhaust attached unit and give it -2/-2. I absolutely adore this card, and I would put it in the main, but because we're typically more aggressive, I just found the side deck is the perfect spot for it. But I do bring it in against those aggressive decks, or maybe where they're bringing out a leader that's just a bit too annoying. And rounding up our side deck, well, it's a blue deck. I had to put it in there. That's 1 Rivals Full. Straight up defeat a unit. Maybe you're playing like an Obi-Wan deck, and well, that Obi-Wan's got Jedi Lightsaber on him, and he's being too annoying. Slide this in, get rid of that Obi-Wan. So that's my Chirrut deck. Here is the deck list for those who want it. So, for matchups and my thoughts on this deck. First of all, it's just an extremely fun off-meta deck that some decks literally can't beat if you get set up properly. If you get your Chirrut set up with the healing behind him, like decks like Sabine, your Cad Banes, anything non-blue basically just can't do anything. It's great. Or they have to pour so much resources into him that by the time they take him down, you've won the game. So for matchups, yeah, against aggression, you're quite good if you get the right cards. And like I said, Protector onto Chirrut is just game over for them. Mid-range, it's quite good. Sometimes you have to bring in some of these side deck options against some of these mid-range decks. But I found myself coming on top most of those games. But here's the issue. Blue hard counters Chirrut. Like, it hard counters him into the ground. Why? Because they got things like Power of the Dark Side that just defeats the unit, Chirrut goes down. Things like Takedown, if Chirrut's under 5 health, they take him down. Or maybe you boost him really high and you play Rivals Full, Chirrut goes down. Like, blue is just such a hard counter. Tips when you play against blue is, well, if you're coming up to 8 resource turn, but they've got Super Laser Blast, just don't play too many units out. Or when you're playing against things like Power of the Dark Side, make sure you've always got a second cheap unit out. And against the Takedown, you just got to try your best to make sure he doesn't drop below the 5 HP. easier said than done, but it's definitely doable if you order and sequence your cards correctly. But most importantly, the biggest tip I can give you is don't overcommit your Chirrut. If you are spending everything you've got just to keep him alive, then you're probably playing the deck wrong. What you want to try and do is make him annoying and quite strong, but you also want to build up other things on the board. Yeah, this deck is just a really fun off-meta deck, and I wasn't lying when I said it in the intro, it's easily my favourite deck to play right now, and if you go to my locals, you're probably sick to death of this deck right now. Thank you for watching the video. Please let me know in the comments any changes you'd make this deck, and well, any other decks I should look at making next. Thank you for watching the video, and hopefully I shall see you in the next one.